Chapter 7. Knowing what you breathe. Knowing what you are breathing is an essential element of safe dive planning and execution. In this chapter, you will learn what oxygen analyzers are and how to use them, how to analyze your gas, proper cylinder labeling, and how to complete the fill station logbook. By the end of the lesson, you will be able to describe what oxygen analyzers are and why analysis is necessary, state how to analyze your nitrox mixture, describe how your cylinder should be labeled after it is filled, and explain why a fill station logbook is kept and how to enter your fill information in the log. As an enriched air nitrox diver, you must know how to analyze the oxygen content of the gas that you will be breathing. In very few situations, such as a dive destination in which a contract fill station routinely supplies nitrox 32 to many dive operators, you may not be tasked with analyzing your own gas. But in most cases, and especially if you have requested a custom blend, analyzing the gas that you will breathe is an essential and critical part of preparing to dive. The blending technician will fill your cylinder, and his or her analysis of the blend is part of the filling procedure. But performing or verifying a final gas analysis and recording the pertinent information in a fill log and on the cylinder is the responsibility of you, the end user. You will use an oxygen analyzer to perform this procedure, so you should know how to use one, as well as have some acquaintance with how they work. There are many styles of oxygen analyzers available, ranging from large units to small analyzers designed for use in the field. Most of the analyzers used for nitrox diving have a digital readout, but analog readouts are also available. Ideally, an analyzer should display oxygen content to an accuracy of 0.1%. That is, the analyzer would display 31.7% rather than just 32%. The sensor commonly used in nitrox analysis is electrochemical. In this type of sensor, the oxygen in the gas diffuses through a membrane where it is ionized as it comes in contact with an electrode. A small electric current is generated by the oxygen ions, which is proportional to the amount of oxygen in the sample. The analyzer measures the resulting current and displays a readout in percent oxygen. Electrochemical analyzers have the advantage of being rugged and portable. They are also relatively less expensive than other types. An essential operation in using any analyzer is calibrating it. Analyzers may exhibit some instability or drift as they age, and so they should be calibrated before each use. In scientific use, calibration often includes zeroing the analyzer to a known inert gas that has no oxygen content. For nitrox use, an analyzer is normally calibrated using standard air. That is, with the analyzer exposed to air, it is set to read 20.9% or 21.0%. Although an analyzer should read in tenths of a percent, it is generally accepted that a mix need be only plus or minus 1% of the target value. NAUI Nitrox 32 and Nitrox 36 dive tables have a tolerance of plus or minus 1% in their use. If the mix is off by more than 1% and the tables are to be used, the blending technician should adjust the mix in the cylinder. A nitrox dive computer can be set to the actual percentage of the mix, so a greater error would be tolerable as long as the planned depth of the dive does not exceed the maximum operating depth of the mix. When you pick up your cylinder of nitrox, the facility will ask you to analyze your mix and record your analysis in the fill station log. The facility that filled your cylinder will have an oxygen analyzer available for this purpose. You will also record the mix information on the cylinder itself, or verify what has already been recorded on the cylinder by the blending technician. Accurate analysis depends not only on the reliability of the oxygen analyzer, but also on the flow rate of the gas through the oxygen sensor. If the flow rate is too high, the analyzer will detect an excess amount of oxygen, and the displayed oxygen percentage will be too high. If the flow rate is too low, the displayed oxygen percentage may also be too low. The acceptable flow rate is about 1 liter per minute and should be between 1/2 and 2 liters per minute. Many analyzer manufacturers supply a specially designed flow restrictor or flow rate regulator that attaches directly to a low-pressure inflator hose fitting on a regulator first stage. The flow restrictor is either self-setting or will have a meter that allows its valve opening to be set at an appropriate flow rate. The downstream side of the flow restrictor attaches to the oxygen sensor of the analyzer. Accurate oxygen analysis also depends on accurate calibration of the analyzer. Before analyzing the gas in your oxygen-enriched air cylinder, you must calibrate it using a known source. This is usually a scuba cylinder that is filled with air. Attach the flow restrictor or regulator to the air supply and the oxygen analyzer to the downstream side of the flow restrictor. Turn on the analyzer and the air supply. If the flow restrictor is not preset, adjust the flow rate to about 1 to 2 liters per minute. Allow the air to flow to the analyzer for a minute until you are sure that the analyzer has stabilized. Then set the analyzer's readout to 20.9% or 21.0%. Once the analyzer is calibrated, you can analyze the mix in your enriched air nitrox cylinder. Without disturbing the analyzer's setting, shut down the air supply cylinder. Allow the analyzer system to depressurize or depressurize it manually. Remove the setup from the air cylinder and reattach it to your nitrox cylinder. Then turn on the valve of the nitrox cylinder. You may need to be expeditious with this switch, as most analyzers will turn themselves off after a certain time of no use. Check the flow rate if it is adjustable, and set it to the same as it was for your air analysis. Allow a minute for your reading to stabilize, and then take a reading of the oxygen fraction or percentage of your mix. Record this information on your cylinder contents label. Every oxygen-enriched air cylinder must be properly labeled with its contents and other necessary information. The label should be prepared immediately after the contents are analyzed in order to avoid forgetful errors. The cylinder label may be a commercially prepared decal or tag that can be written on with a waterproof marker and subsequently erased or wiped off with alcohol and reused. Or a label can be made using an indelible marker on tape that will be removed before the next refill. The data on the cylinder label should include fill date, oxygen percentage, maximum operating depth, cylinder pressure, and the name of the analyzer or end user. An evolving practice is to add a second label mounted vertically on the cylinder body and marked with maximum operating depth in numbers 3 inches high, for example, using house number decals. This MOD label is positioned so that it is unobstructed and can be easily read by a dive partner who is swimming next to the user. Once you have analyzed your cylinder and labeled it, you will be asked to complete a permanent fill station log and sign off that you have received the cylinder. This logbook is kept by the facility that filled your cylinder. In the logbook, you will enter your name, the date, your certification, the cylinder's serial number, the cylinder pressure, the oxygen percentage of the mix, and the maximum operating depth. You will also sign the logbook entry. The cylinder log is used to keep track of all nitrox cylinders that leave the facility. It also verifies by your signature that you either analyzed the contents or watched as a blending technician analyzed them for you, and that you knew the particulars of the fill and its limits when you received the cylinder. This chapter covered oxygen analyzers, analyzing your gas, cylinder labeling, and filling out the fill station logbook. You should now be able to describe what oxygen analyzers are and why analysis is necessary, state how to analyze your nitrox mixture, describe how your cylinder should be labeled after it is filled, and explain why a fill station logbook is kept and how to enter your fill information in the log. And so, at last, you have it all together, and you are ready to enjoy the world of nitrox diving. Armed with your cylinder of enriched air nitrox, perhaps blended to your personal specifications, your knowledge of the risks, limits, and advantages of the god's ambrosia, or devil's gas, that you are about to use, an appropriate dive plan, and a compatible dive partner, you head off to the dive site. There, you and your partner assemble and don your equipment, rehearse and review your dive plan, including a review of your MOD, mutually check each other's gear, and begin your dive. And once you make your descent, it really is just like breathing air.